No, I did not just come back from an ultra marathon, but I am wearing the Apple Watch Ultra. And my thoughts on it, Apple is basically selling inspiration here. And so I kind of want to talk through it compared to other Apple Watches and whether or not this is a watch that watch enthusiasts like myself can kind of get behind, and then some of the functions of the watch and what makes it a little different than some of the other Apple Watch models. Welcome to Wrist Swap. My name is Harrison. If you're new to the channel, I typically talk about mechanical watches, so watches that either are wound when you rotate a crown or from the movement of your arm, they wind themselves. And that's kind of the basis of what I like the most, and that's what I enjoy. That's what I wear on a daily basis. So when looking at the Ultra, what exactly stands out? First, it's thick. It's a big guy, and it doesn't overhang my wrist too much, but generally, it's a large watch. And you know, you could still pull it off, but it's definitely not for someone like my wife or for most people with smaller wrists. The strap on the Alpine, for me, on a medium strap, I have a 170 millimeter wrist or 6.75 inches. It's kind of annoying to get on and off. I always wonder if this keeper that hooks in is going to keep whacking the top of the watch. So that's not super duper fun, but the strap itself is comfortable. It rubs a little bit when I run. I have to keep it pretty tight because it's not overly soft on the inside, and so it likes to slip. And so the wearing experience when I'm running is fine. It's not too heavy, but it's not as nice as a traditional Apple Watch that's a lot thinner and lighter. This main wayfinder dial that only comes on the Apple Watch Ultra is a nice feature. I think it's really one of the main differentiators of the watch. For example, if I swapped this dial over to a regular dial face that was found on the original Apple Watch, and I did the same for the SE and I swapped the bands, then you can see, as I'm showing you now, that the watch itself is not that different. And the dial and the strap have so much to do with what it looks like and how it feels. The case is different, sure. It's a little bigger, a little bulkier, and it's got the crown guard, but you can't see that orange, international orange button on the side. You can really only see those crown guards on the right side. And so it doesn't really scream at you unless you have that wayfinder dial on and you have one of those Ultra straps. What I will say is that the strap itself is something that I like because it has these fixed lugs on the outside. It's very much like a traditional watch in that overall design, so it feels more like a traditional watch in the way the strap integrates with the case than more of the Apple Watch, which is kind of like an integrated silicone or integrated nylon strap where it doesn't really have any lugs, so to speak. So I like that aspect of it. I like how that strap looks. So you can see it on the SE that it looks a lot nicer and it dresses up the watch. It makes it feel more like a standard watch compared to an Apple Watch. The titanium case and the dull gray aspect of the case I think is also a nice touch. It again separates itself. So between the titanium dull gray and the fact that it's this flat sapphire, so the case is raised up to meet that sapphire, it again is feeling more like a traditional watch. And so I think it seems more correct to me, I guess. It feels a little bit less like a computer on my wrist, although the dial obviously does, but the case architecture feels a little less like a computer on my wrist than the traditional Apple Watch does. In terms of comfort, it's actually not too bad. Like I said, it slips around a little bit when I'm running, so this strap isn't perfect for that. I've heard the Trail is a little bit better for running, and the Ocean obviously is a rubber strap, so it wouldn't really irritate my skin as much if I had those straps. The watch still doesn't disappear. It's gonna be noticeable, it's gonna be proud, it's gonna be obvious that you're wearing an Apple Watch Ultra, and I think you're gonna get more comments probably on this watch in this short term where it's still new and novelty and it's still different than the standard Apple Watch than you would on anything else because people know that it exists. What's different about the Apple Watch Ultra compared to the SE? And there are several different things, but they're all relatively minor in typical Apple fashion. What they try and do is they get you into the overall space because of the UI, because of the experience, the actual function of the watch, the fact that I can store different songs on here so easily and integrate it between that and my AirPods and my iPhone and my Mac. That integration, the ecosystem, is one of the major appeals of this watch. What about this one is actually different than this. And that's where Apple really gets you. They sell you on this ideal. They use the ideal as an upsell, essentially. You've got the utility here and the function and the use of a sports watch that you can wear and run with. And then they sell you on, well, you know, maybe now you're interested in the Ultra because it's only this much more, but you get a watch that is, you know, supposed to be durable and rugged and all that great stuff. So then basic depth app I'm showing you right now, I pressure tested it and you can see kind of how it functions in a pressure tester. And you can get depth readings, and it's really helpful for recreational diving if you're just looking for base level information. But even Apple suggests you bring along a standard dive computer, and the dive computer gives you more information. Now, the concept of Apple is to give you an Oceanics app, which will give you more information, but how much extra information is it going to give you, and is it worth the subscription you're going to have to pay Oceanic Plus or whatever in order to have that information when you could just buy a dive computer? That's kind of the question. I guess this leads back to my original question, which what is actually different? What are they upselling? And there are a few key pieces there. This Ultra is bigger, and it also has an edge-to-edge display. This SE has less brightness, it's not an edge-to-edge display, and it has an Ion X glass, whereas the Ultra has a sapphire glass. With the Ultra, you add the ECG feature and the blood oxygen feature, both of which, for me, as a young guy, are relatively unimportant. And the blood oxygen you can typically tell either by the color of your fingertips because they'll turn purple, or your overall feeling. You'll feel out of energy and exhausted. But again, you know, maybe those are nice to haves and some people need them, and so those are nice to have either on the Series 8 or the Ultra. This also has temperature sensing, which I think is mainly just for sleep and for ovulation, which I obviously don't have the latter. And for sleep, temperature sensing is not as important to me. I don't need to know my peak or change in heat temperature when I sleep. So that's minor. So both watches have international emergency calling. They both have backtrack. They both have gyroscopes. They both have the same things. The only difference between this and the Ultra in terms of actual emergency features is the Ultra has the siren, which is about 86 decibels. You can see a clip here of us trying it out. All right, so we're gonna test out and see how loud this siren bad boy is. So you hold this button right here, pops up, and the top one is siren. You slide, and then it gives you the option. It's not that loud.
I thought it was gonna be way louder. Disappointment.
I'm very disappointed.
I for one.
Apple needs to crank it up a notch. That ain't nothing. I can scream way louder than that. The Ultra also now has dual band GPS. So if you live in a city, apparently it's nice to be able to swap between different GPS locators so that you can get a better proximity of where you are in a city if you're surrounded by skyscrapers. I don't have that issue. I'm not. So that's not, again, as important for me. But during ultra marathons like Boston or Chicago, I've heard that it's nice to have that extra precision of location. In general, Apple's quite good on their GPS. So for basic level running, the SE is perfect for what I need it for. And then you get to the most important piece, which I would say is battery life. So it has up to 18 hours battery life on the SE and the 8, whereas the Ultra has 36. And apparently both of those you can double in low power modes, which I don't know if that's the existing low power mode or the one they're going to come out with. But either way, that is one of the main features people are going to want, is the not having to charge it constantly. And again, Garmin has that on a lot of their watches. They'll last for a long time, but they're not doing as much computing, especially background computing of, you know, whether or not you've started a workout or not. So all this to say that the differences from the base model, the SE, for $279 in the 44 millimeter, for example, to the $800 titanium Ultra are relatively small. The big ones are just going to be the case is now titanium, whether or not that's important to you. The design is different. You get a different dial face. You get a extended battery life, and you get a sapphire crystal on it. And those are the big ones, because The last one, for example, let's say you wanted a sapphire crystal on your Apple Watch, because my brother, for example, has scratched the crap out of the corners of his Apple Watch against brick when we've done jobs, construction jobs. And so that may be a feature he wants. In order to get the sapphire on the 8, he needs to upgrade to stainless steel, which already puts him in a different price category. If he moves to the stainless steel model, he's now already gone to $699, and that's with the standard strap. So you're just $100 away. And Apple's not stupid. They do that price incremental on purpose. You know, you want to go to a more durable glass. So you're already in a stainless steel model. You're already at $699. So going that extra $100 for the Ultra doesn't seem nearly as small. And if I was someone that needed a sapphire crystal because I'm wearing it every single day, then it makes sense. I may very well have kept the Ultra, but as it stands right now, it's not enough for me to want to keep it, because this is a running watch for me. This is a watch I would use when I exercise, not for something I wear every single day. So what about it do I really like? And I would say the main thing that I like is this new dial. I think whether it's because it's novel and new or because the dial is actually different and interesting, I'm not entirely sure. The night mode is kind of a waste. I went on a run at night and I didn't need to have it in red night mode. I'd imagine that may be helpful if I was going to go hunting, so I didn't show too much light. I was only showing red light, but even then I probably wouldn't have the display on at all. I'd probably have it in theater mode if I was going to go hunting. That's about the only scenario I can imagine, being out at night and not wanting to cast off too much light. The other thing about the design that I really like, the crown guards, the crown knurling, the overall architecture of the case is cool. I mean, it does give you a feeling of something more utilitarian, and it gives you this feeling of something more rugged. And so it does carry a bit of inspiration. It carries that feeling. And I think that feeling, as I said, is what they're trying to sell to people. And I think there's some value in that. You know, you can look at it two different ways. You can look at the watch as a status symbol, saying that, you know, people are wearing it because they want to be seen as someone that is overall fit. And that's, you know, one aspect. The other aspect is going to be from the inspiration standpoint. And when I say that, I mean that they're either going to not buy into the inspiration and they're going to say, I'm not an ultramarathon runner, or you're not an ultramarathon runner, you don't need an ultra, for example. Or they're going to be someone who buys it because they want to be like an ultramarathon runner, if that makes sense. The concept being like when you buy a gym membership. You want to be someone that goes to the gym every day. That's why you buy the gym membership. And some people aren't that person yet. They want to be that person. And so they buy the gym membership, they tell themselves they're going to go, and because they bought it, because they put their money forward, they may start going. And that, I think, is the value in a watch like this. If I buy a standard Apple Watch, other than the gamification that OS or watchOS has in there, it may not inspire me to go running every day. Whereas when I got the Ultra, the first day I had it on, I was back home. I had just come back from doing some errands. It was 9 o'clock at night and I thought, I'm gonna go run. You know, it was inspired. I needed to run if I was gonna wear a watch like this, especially if you're gonna pay for it. You need to put your money where your mouth is. If I'm buying a watch that I shouldn't own because it's too much and I don't need it, then you kind of then try and live up to the standard that it's putting forward, or the marketing is putting forward. And I think that inspiration aspect is, for me, the one main attribute that I think is a calling card for me as a watch enthusiast. And I'll lead that later when I talk about the watch enthusiast community and why I think that's appealing to all of us. But the concept being that you want to buy this watch and live up to the fact that it's built for ultramarathon runners. It's built for people that are dedicated to fitness or to adrenaline-seeking activities. And so you want to be more like that. And maybe looking down at this watch every day drives you towards that. And for that reason, I think it's a net gain if it does that for some people. And it makes sense why those people would buy it. What do I not like about the watch? And I would say there are two reasons I don't like, or two things I don't like about the watch. So one is going to be the size. It's enormous. My wife can't wear it. So it can't be like a community watch. We can't just pass it between the two of us because it's way too big for her. And that's a big detriment, because if I could split it down the middle, then, you know, okay, it makes a little bit more sense now. We don't need two watches, we need one, and we can share it. So the size is definitely a detractor for me. The last thing I'm not a huge fan of is the overall concept. And when I say that, I mean, I don't like the fact that it's marketed as having some of these features that everyone's talking about. One of the big ones is going to be the backtracking. It was marketed as, hey, this is a survival feature that's going to be on this watch. But it's on the SE and the 8 as well. So it's really hard for me to say, oh yeah, that's great. You know, I feel like they kind of presented it in a way that it was exclusive to the Ultra when it's not. The fact that it has the dive app on there, or the depth app on there, but it's so standard that in order to have the dive computing things that I need, I have to buy a subscription from someone else as a third-party app. Don't really like that either. And so I think it's not offering me enough. If the dive computer was standard, was free, gave me all that information, then I'd say, okay, well, instead of buying a dive computer, I would have that and my normal Apple Watch for running, and I could combine them and it would make sense to own this. But because I have to pay extra for that, and I have to pay an extra $10 on my cellular plan to have cellular on the watch, it just kind of snowballs. It stops being $33 a month if you finance it for the next 2 years of your life for something that eventually becomes obsolete and you have to buy a new one. But you're then buying the Apple Care program because you bought an expensive watch. You don't want it to, be destroyed. Then you're buying the cellular program. Then you're buying the Ocean X app. And so from $33 a month, now I'm closer to like $63 a month or $73 a month, depending on the Oceanic Plus app pricing. So that really doesn't sit well for me. It scales up so quickly. It seems like such a nice offer, and then it becomes something different. And so the standard SE is plenty for what I'm going to use it for. And then if I need to go diving, I'll just buy a dive computer or rent one or whatever I need at the time. So that kind of leads me to my last point. And what about this watch is appealing to watch enthusiasts, to people that collect mechanical watches? Why are they interested in the Ultra? And I think it stems around the same reason a lot of us are interested in mechanical watches in general, and that's the fact that they are inspirational. You look at a watch that you can put on your wrist and wear, and a rotor spins in it that winds a mainspring that then, uses a complicated set of gears and pallets and jewels, these synthetic rubies, to actually operate. You think, man, that's a marvel of mechanical engineering. So that inspirational aspect of it, the moon watch where it went to the moon, and these different stories are inspiration. And so when you watch a marketing video from Apple and you see this guy running in the desert or going diving or trekking through these mountains, you think, well, that's great. I could see myself in those scenarios, or I want to see myself in those scenarios. And that inspiration aspect, not to mention the fact that it's marketed as rugged as hell, it gives us a certain level of interest. The big thing right now in the watch world are tool watches, and I'm no different. I like exploring watches. I have the Explorer 1 and the Explorer 2 from Rolex, and both of those are marketed as watches used by explorers for caving and for summiting mountains, although neither of them are typically doing that. I've gone skiing with the Explorer, and I'll go skiing with the Explorer too, but I'm not going to go into a cave probably yet. But they're supposed to inspire a feeling. They're supposed to inspire us to do something more, to be more, or to think of ourselves as more. I think that's what's so interesting about this Ultra for us as in a community. We all are interested in that watch that is rugged, that can be used, that can be worn, that can be used anywhere. And this is pretty close to that, other than obviously your G-Shocks, your Garmin's, because those watches can do that. You could wear a G-Shock anywhere in the world. Space, deepest oceans for the most part. You could wear it on land, you could smack it, you could work concrete with it. So G-Shock has your bases covered. That's kind of my thought. I think the Ultra is marketed very well, and it drives an inspiration. And for that reason, if it inspires someone to work out or be more fit or to raise the level of their overall fitness, then it's great. It's worth it, worth every penny. But the problem is, I think the wearing experience isn't fantastic. And if you already own an Apple Watch, the upgrade or the reason to swap yours in for a brand new watch is probably not there. The Ultra is an interesting proposition, and I think it's very well placed, but is it worth the money? Depends on your use case and how it inspires you. Till the next one, take care.